Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Planning Committee. This planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak? And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. May I remind members that as per statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask that you all please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting? Thank you. Right, we'll move on now to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance and apologies. Rachel, do we have any apologies?
None today, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Yes, of course, Chair. So if we can start with Councillor Ashley.
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Evans.
None that I'm aware of either, thank you.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I am the ward resident, the ward councillor, I beg your pardon, for item number 4.
Okay. Councillor Haller.
I'm a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Okay. Councillor Gaynor-James.
Yes, as a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Okay, and Councillor John James.
Yes, again, Pontypool Community Council, item 5.
Okay, Councillor Janet Jones.
None that I'm aware of, Niall.
Councillor Mark Jones.
None for me.
Yourself, Chair.
Nothing to declare, thank you.
And Councillor Slade.
Nothing to declare for me.
Okay, that's everyone, Chair.
Thank you, Niall. Right, we go to agenda item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee from the 5th of February 2025. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Right, I don't see any hands going up, so we'll take them as approved. Thank you. Agenda item 4, planning application 18P0614 FUL, 4 new homes with new pedestrian and vehicle access and improvements to the public highway at Delwyn House, Lamb Lane, Pontyr, Cwmbran. Can I ask Mr. Richard Lewis, Planning Consultant, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Can you see that presentation?
Yes.
There you go. Okay, well, this is an application for 4 detached dwellings, showing you the location plan at the moment. You can see it's in a a large site. It's the curtilage currently of the Lewin House, which is in itself a large detached property. It's located at the end of Lamb Lane, which is in the northern part of Pontia. And in this area, it's mainly detached and semi-detached dwellings, which is clustered around the end of Lamb Lane. And this part of Lamb Lane, although Lamb Lane is actually adopted, the part that you can see in red, most of that is in unknown ownership and not adopted. So the proposal is 4 dwellings, as I say. 3 are proposed adjacent to the side boundary, looking in towards the site. And the 4th, the largest property, is located next to the Lewin House. As part of the proposal, it is proposed to improve the end of Lamb Lane, and I'll show you photographs of Lamb Lane later on. But Lamb Lane, that part of Lamb Lane will be widened. There will be a new footpath provided, a new turning head provided, and these will be offered for adoption as part of the proposed Section 106 agreement. And just to point out, this property on Plot 1, we described this in the report, but just the relationship with the existing property known as the Manse, the issue of overlooking there is described in the report, and what we're saying is that it's quite an oblique angle, and therefore the amenity is not so detrimental that we would think the application should be refused for that reason. The second thing to note there is that there is a proposal for tree planting along the boundary. We feel that needs to be reinforced, and there's a condition on the recommendation for further boundary treatment there to screen as best as possible any overlooking, as well as trying to bring that planting early on in the development construction. These are the plans of and elevations of the properties. This is the house proposed on plots 1 and 3. It's the same design. And then on plot 2, not dissimilar, with an integrated garage. And then the largest one on plot 4. This is the soft landscaping plan, showing new planting. You'll note that there were 5 protected trees on the site. I explain in the report that 4 of them are to be retained. And if you can see my mouse, I'm just going around the area where these trees are, and it's proposed to retain them and provide a green area around them to protect them. Just one correction to the report. The 5th protected tree is in this sort of area. That one was, I thought, was proposed to be removed because it's a U classified tree, which means that it's something that is in very poor condition to the extent that it should be removed. That tree has already been removed, and the council gave its permission to do that some time ago. There's 13 new trees proposed on the site, but as I've said before, there's a condition, number 10, that requires further information, particularly along the boundary with the Manse. And this plan also shows ecological mitigation and enhancements. They're covered in the report. A number of surveys have been done, and a green infrastructure statement has been submitted, and these are all covered under conditions 4 to 8. Just some photographs now of Lamb Lane. This is the adopted part of Lamb Lane. And then going towards the end of Lamb Lane, this is going into the unadopted private lane, which is not, we don't know who the owner of that lane is. And these photographs will walk you through that. And on the left-hand side now, this is picking up the application site. Again, this is the end of Lamb Lane, and on the left-hand side, you can see the application site and the Lewin property in the background behind the trees. And this is looking back down from the end of Lamb Lane, and again, the site here is on the right-hand side. And again, picture of the condition of Lamb Lane. These are the protected trees. They're clustered, 4 of them, and as I said, it's proposed to provide a green area around them to provide a buffer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Niall, are there any members in the chamber wishing to ask a question?
No, Chair.
Right, thank you. Right, we'll start with Councillor Stuart Ashley. Stuart, you've got a question?
Well, several actually. Can I ask Richard, was this place that this I believe is fairly long standing thing? Did we go for a site visit nearly 10 years ago on this? Because I kind of remember this. The question I also have is around the trees. What type of trees are they? Some are definitely distinctly looking in poor condition. And what type of trees do you intend to put round there? Then the other question I got, you've got very firm conditions on here, which suggests to me, in the light of people's questions about this, you're putting a very firm programme on it. I'll leave it there for the moment.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Ashley. First of all, yeah, there was this application, or an application I should say, originally came in, I think it was 2010.
Yeah.
The same, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the same application that's being presented now. I think that site visit was probably part of that earlier application. That application was refreshed in 2018. There were a number of issues that needed to be worked through, mainly around viability and drainage. So there's been several lots of consultation during that time, several lots of publicity on the application. And it's only sort of fairly recently that we've been able to iron out those issues, which is why we've brought it now. In terms of the types of trees, I can't tell you the types of trees. We've consulted with ecology and our landscape officer. They're happy with the trees that are being proposed. But as I've said, I think the important thing in terms of overlooking of the adjacent property, that really needs to be looked at properly, and therefore we'll be expecting a scheme to reinforce that side of the boundary. And I think that was that your 2 questions, Councillor?
Yeah, it was. And the reason I asked for the type of trees, because obviously we wouldn't expect them to plant Leylandii around there, would we? In this day and age. And as a general rule, we're getting down to, if we take out 1 tree, we put 3 trees back. I'm sure my colleagues are reinforced on this, but I would hope if we take deciduous out, we put deciduous back. But then you ask the question how good screening that is. I mean, it's obviously up to the developers where they put what they put in there, but like for like would be preferable from a planning committee's point of view. The other question, which is what the ecology is floating around in there, birds and bats and all the rest of it, because obviously it's quite mature trees, now whatever condition it's in, that does sort of depend a bit. Obviously, from looking at the amount of interest from other people there, if you're acting as screens, it's going to have to grow fairly quickly, which is why I also asked what type of tree it was. Yeah,
as I said, I don't know the actual types of trees, so we're relying on our sort of other colleagues in the council to look at those and decide whether they are appropriate. It's not always appropriate to do a like-for-like situation. In this particular case, there was a comprehensive survey of the existing trees done. A number of trees were classed as U, which is they're in very poor condition and should be removed. But of the trees that were removed that were better categories, the ratio, as you, I think, alluded to, the ratio is a 3 to 1. So 3 trees have been planted for each one removed. So we're satisfied with the soft landscaping that's being proposed, particularly because it's based on survey work that was carried out previously. In terms of terms of ecology, it's set out in the report the sort of main enhancements for ecology, but there is a comprehensive report that's been done. There's a number of recommendations in that report, and the ecologists are saying they're happy provided those recommendations are actually implemented. And you've again alluded to the conditions. Those conditions are to support those recommendations and make sure that they're implemented in a timely manner.
Well, I wouldn't want to question what the ecologists say, but yew trees are incredibly old, and the word manse is a giveaway there, and obviously that ground must have had yew trees on there for some time. I mean, we have, a lot of us have yew trees surrounding us, and even modern ones are about 200 years old. Are quite young by yew tree standards, because some yew trees can be over 1,000 years old. So that despite them being in bad, poor condition, to replace a yew tree is quite some undertaking. I'll just make that comment just so you get the idea of what I'm on about. Thank you for that, Richard. I won't go any further with it.
Right, thank you. The next, Councillor Stephen Evans, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I got two. Excuse me. Right. On looking on the photos you put up, Richard, the road looks quite narrow. Now, if you can have a lot of construction vehicles coming up and down there, surely that will have an impact on the residents who are living there. And also, if emergency vehicle needs to get there, because looking at the road, it is quite narrow if you look at parts of that. Now, the other question I got is, yes, you're out in the tree setup, you're doing the bats, you're doing the owls, but what are you doing for the bird population that flies around that area? Because that will have a severe impact on the flying birds. So how are we managing that? Thank you.
Right, thank you. Can you answer that, Richard, please?
Yes, of course. In terms of the construction traffic, you know, I understand what you're saying, Councillor. There is always problems in terms of constructing new properties, particularly on a road like this. You're right, it's narrow, it's poorly surfaced as well. And the only thing that we do in those circumstances is make sure that we apply a condition for a construction environmental management plan right up front in the development, which means that the applicant will need to work out how the site can be constructed, and all the environmental and amenity impacts need to be taken into account as far as possible. So those details will be dealt with as part of the condition. But there's not an easy solution. You're right, it's a narrow road. There is a proposal to improve it, so it will be widened and surfaced. So ultimately, there will be an overall improvement to that side of Lamb Lane. In terms of the birds, again, this is covered in the ecology report. The main thing with birds is that you need to avoid taking down trees within the bird breeding season, or you need to have an ecologist supervising when you're on site doing that. And you'll note there's a condition to that effect on there. Because it was part of the ecological survey, that's been reviewed by our ecologists, and again, there's been no objections from the ecologist with regard to the recommendations in there.
Okay, Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you for that, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Gordon, you've got a question?
Oh, I've got several, Chair. Thank you. Yeah. If I sort of ask a couple, we'll go from there. The pictures don't really do it justice, I think. Lamb Lane, although it's sort of in a sort of urban settlement, it is quite rural towards the end. There's nothing kind of after Lamb Lane. It doesn't lead anywhere. There's open fields and whatever. It's largely fairly substantial detached and semi-detached properties, as Richard has outlined. You know, mature properties which have been there some considerable time, and I'm wondering whether new builds kind of fit in, really. A substantive question, Richard, and I'll sort of I'll do a couple and I may revisit. One of the perennial issues in Pontia, in that part of Pontia, is drainage. Okay, There's consistent flooding down Kylie Road. The drainage system is inadequate, and every time there's a shower of rain, there's absolute chaos. In the recent storms further down Pontier, you know, we were punting out sandbags and places were underwater. So the whole drainage system in Pontier isn't fit for purpose. That's a sort of a comment. But the question, and I'll refer to the Welsh Water, if I can find it on my screen. Bear with me. Oh. Here we are. So in Welsh Water's original comments of 29th of October 2018, because this is not the first incarnation of this planning application, no development shall commence until a drainage scheme for the site has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Schemes shall provide for the disposal of foul surface and land water and include an assessment of the potential disposal of surface and land water by sustainable means. Okay. In Welsh Water's updated comments, they say they've not submitted any further information on that. Here we go. So Welsh Water's updated comments of the 11th of September, we note that following our previous response, no new documents relating to drainage have been submitted. Therefore, our response remains unchanged. Would you like to comment on that for me, please?
Certainly. As I said right at the beginning, I think drainage has been one of the issues that has taken a long time to address. The applicant has been in contact with Welsh Water with regard to the sewerage, and obviously the engineers have worked up a plan that needs to satisfy Welsh Water before they can do anything further. So in terms of capacity of the sewers, that will really be something that Welsh Water need to look at. And my understanding is they have reached an agreement to do that. What we are more concerned about, I think, and possibly you're more concerned about, is the flooding aspects, and which is mainly surface water drainage as well. The surface water drainage has been covered. That's been looked at throughout this consent. And you'll see there's a number of consultation comments from our drainage engineers. Ultimately, because this is a SUDS proposal, so it's a sustainable urban drainage system, it's dealt with by the SARB authority outside of planning. So there's a bit of a dual role there in terms of planning and the SARB authority. What we've done, there's been quite a lot of information submitted on drainage. Our drainage officer is reasonably happy with that, have raised a few questions. So just to safeguard that, we have put a condition on that full drainage details for surface water need to be provided to us and approved before any commencement of development. That's also going to be checked through the SARB authority as well. So because that's really a technical issue, there's nothing there now in terms of those comments that give us any concerns with regards to any increase in any flooding. It should actually make the situation a lot better. But again, we're relying on obviously technical experts in terms of drainage, and their advice is we're okay in principle with this, but if more detail will need to be provided.
I wish the residents of Lamb Lane and wider Pontier shared your confidence in that, Richard. I really do, but at the moment they don't. A couple of others, if I may, while I've got the floor. I notice, this caused me some concern, that Dishline House has had a two-storey extension built on it without planning permission, which I don't know whether they need planning permission, but it seems to be a little hotbed of development there, and if people are building without planning permission, that gives me some form of concern, to be honest. Can you, as I've said, it's a very narrow road, and access is poor. Can you comment on parking? Because 4 new properties could potentially generate kind of 10 to 12 cars, couldn't it? And I mean, that's an area of Lamb Lane which could really do without that level of traffic. I can't, and pictures won't do it justice, and the report doesn't do it justice, just how narrow and sort of dead end this is. And it's, while it's classed as urban, it's essentially very rural, to be honest. It really is, that particular piece of Lamb Lane. So do you want to comment on parking and the sort of road layout and the disruption that's going to cause, please?
Yes, certainly. Just with regard to any unauthorised development, you'll see on the report there's a history of applications on this property. There is a detached double garage that was approved in 2024. I'm not sure if you're talking about any other unauthorised developments, but obviously if you let us know where you think that there's developments going on that are not authorised, we're more than happy to look into that.
It forms part of the objections, Richard.
Yeah, and I wasn't absolutely sure where they were coming from, because I think that the work that I've seen is covered by approvals. But as I said, if any resident wants to be specific in where that's happening, we're happy to look into it. It wasn't really, I suppose, relevant to the current proposal before us, because we would deal with that as a separate issue anyway. But regarding the parking, as you probably know, the parking standards are now maximum standards rather than minimum standards. In a place like this, you're quite right, you don't have a lot of on-street parking available, so we would always go to the maximum standard. And in this particular case, for those types of properties, 4 and 5 bed, the standard would be 3 per dwelling. And so each of those houses do have 3 parking spaces off-street, which is what our standards say. So from that point of view, that's complying with the council's policy.
Okay.
I do note, however, you know, we see it often, don't we, where there's parking provided, but people still park elsewhere outside of their properties. That's just not something that we can deal with. All we can really do is make sure that there's provision within the curtilage, so there is the potential for all cars generated by the development to be parked off street.
And I think that's where residents' objections, are seeded in that, like I say, without a site visit, and I know colleagues may be on a site visit for a previous incarnation of this planning application, you really can't express enough. There is no roadside parking really, so the amount of traffic in and of itself is going to be a pain. The parking will be a pain, but if it's gone through, and there we are. Keeping with the rest of the properties, like I said, the surrounding properties are substantial and well established and of an age. Do we think these 4 new builds will be in keeping with that particular area?
Not sure whether that was a question, but I think we're happy with the way those properties fit into the surrounding area. It's obviously no decision has been made on this yet, so it's obviously for members to make their own decisions on that. But yeah, I don't think I can't comment any further on the parking or the road issues. You've seen the comments from the highways engineer that they're not objecting to the proposal, but I take the point in terms of congestion where people do park outside their curtilage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, Carl. Right, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Janet Jones for a question.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Richard. Just 2 questions. During the construction, will there be any restrictions, on the noise levels which affect neighbours? And secondly, you said there's going to be a turning area. Well, if the road is so narrow, is this going to be sufficient turning area for lorries, etc., on the construction, as also from our lorries collecting waste?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. This will all be dealt with in the construction environmental management plan that the developer will have to submit before he starts any work. So in terms of how vehicles enter the site, how they turn, the noise that they make, and as you know, it's very different. You can't sort of stop all noise from, there is going to be noise from construction vehicles and construction work. What the construction environmental management plan normally does is restrict the hours of work. So at least at those times where people demand a bit more quiet, there's no operations going on. So all of that will be dealt with in the KEMP, the construction plan.
Okay, Janet. Right, we got one more now from Councillor Stuart Ashley again.
I've got a minor issue and a major comment, I think. The unadopted road, we all got experiences of unadopted roads. What basis, if the ownership of that unadopted road is not, are they going ahead on? Because we know that we have fun and games with unadopted roads in most of our wards. So, as Janet alluded to, the turning circle and the ability that it's a narrow road and all the issues that are involved with that. So are we doing it, or is the developer doing it? Question number one. But then the other thing, looking at this application, I don't think I've seen an application all the time I've been on the planning committee with so many bolted down, as it were. I think you've made sure that this application, if it goes ahead, it's got timelines, time constraints, and everything in it, which planners are normally very wary about things like this, and it does, from my point of view, I suspect others, but on this conversation we're having at the moment, that there are some worries about it. I'm looking at the issues: drains, ecology, tree plant in the lot. There's a lot of issues involved in this application, and are we sure about this one? And it's been a long time in gestation. I see Carl's nodding. So I'm wondering, are you sure about it? Do we need another visit? I suspect Carl would like one by the sound of it. There's nothing to stop us having one. And that some of the issues maybe need revisiting. I'm hesitant to even suggest this, because I know it's been, but it's still leaving a lot of questions, and local residents have views about it as well. I'm wondering whether the chair would allow that or not, but maybe it does need another visit to this site.
Yeah, the good points, Councillor Ashley, about the unknown ownership of the access. That is an issue, and quite frankly, this scheme wouldn't have been acceptable without improvements to that area of the road. So the improvements are being proposed. The highways officers are happy with the improvements, which are widening the existing access, providing a turn-in head for all the properties at the end of Lamb Lane, and providing a footpath as well. And then there'll be a Section 106 agreement that requires the applicant to carry out those works to an adoptable standard, and then offer that to the authority to properly adopt, so that the maintenance of it will be secured through the adoption. So that would be covered within a Section 106 agreement. Are we sure whether this is acceptable as a scheme? Well, I think the recommendation is clear. We are recommending approval. As you say, we've put a lot of conditions on to safeguard a lot of these things that are being discussed. So we are happy with the scheme as presented. You mentioned a site visit. Councillor Gordon mentioned a site visit. Obviously, it is up to members if they felt that they wanted to see the site before making a decision. If a member wanted to move that, it's up to committee whether that takes place or whether committee will go straight for a determination now.
I would bow to Councillor Gordon on that one.
Yeah, I think that the suggestion of a site visit has considerable merit, because I can see there's some conflict. Yeah, to see it is to understand it, I think, in this case. And you know, as Richard said, there's a number of conditions there, and I just don't have full confidence that it goes through. It will be very, very disruptive. I think you need to see it. So I would also suggest that. Do you know, when I have one of these reports out, my first protocol is generally to the objections. Although, you know, I read the whole report. I said, right, where are the bodies buried? Where's the problems we got? And they're normally found within the objections. And I think the sheer weight of objections we've had on this, like I say, it doesn't affect that many people, residents, in terms of disruption. It's just the residents at the top end of Lamb Lane. But there are considerable objections around drainage and ecology and all the rest of it. And I think, without a further site visit, I'm not minded to support it at this point.
Are you proposing it?
I will propose it happily, Chair.
Is there a seconder?
I will.
Right, thank you. Is everyone in agreement? Yes, I think the majority.
No,
Is it?
Chair, I don't agree. I've already been there, and so has Councillor Ashley. So I don't see what's to be gained by going back. Let's be honest.
Well, I've been there twice in the past myself. But I mean, if members really want to have it, if it'll make a difference, then I suggest we have a site visit.
Chair,
I would go along with it.
Chair, Polly Ellis.
Yes, yeah, Polly.
So, Councillor Gordon has proposed, Councillor Ashley has seconded.
Yes.
Can we have a vote on that at this stage?
Yes, yes.
No.
Just hands? Or...
Niall will go through the list of members and we'll have a vote on whether or not a site visit should take place.
Right, we will do that. Niall, can you go through the alphabetical order again?
Yes, of course. So, Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gordon.
For.
Councillor Haller.
For.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
For.
Councillor John James.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor Mark Jones.
For.
Yourself, Chair.
For.
Councillor Slade.
Against.
Okay. Right, well, that's a majority for a site visit, so that's what we will do before making any decision. Everyone satisfied now? Apart from Councillor Slade, obviously. Yes? Okay then. It'll be arranged, and I hope all of you are going to come and see it, and then you can make a decision, hopefully, the right decision. Okay then, thank you, Richard. Right, we'll go on to agenda item 5, planning application 23 P0615 FUL, and its works to redirect the Blaen Gathog Stream Castlewood watercourse south of Farm Road, and the creation of a pond to store water, allowing a more controlled discharge of surface water from the site into the existing culvert network. Associated remediation and landscaping works and repair and refurbishment works to the existing culvert at the British Talloway. Can I ask Mr. Tom Braithwaite, planner, to present the report, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. So yes, as Chair explained, this is an application for the British site. I'm sure members will be familiar with the British. So principally, the site is allocated in the current local development plan in a strategic action area policy 5 for a two-phased allocation. First is a land reclamation scheme, and then a second half of the allocation is for a future mixed-use scheme. And this application relates to the first half of the allocation. So yes, it's worked to redirect two of the main watercourses, redirect them and divert them into a single drainage channel, and then that will flow then down to a new attenuation pond in the south of the site to help the site cope with the new 1 in 100 flooding risk and allow the water to be attenuated in a controlled manner, and then it will be discharged in a controlled way into the existing culvert network. So if I move on to the aerial photograph of the site here, we've got the British site, as we can see. The site is bound to the east by the historic railway line. To the west is Farm Road and British Road, and then to the south we've got Lodge Road and the Big Arch. So moving on to the general arrangement plan, we can see here, firstly, the Llangafog Brook starts in the west of the site. It's culverted under Farm Road currently, and then appears overground within the site. This watercourse is to be redirected as it immediately enters the site. It will follow the land from east to west in the new drainage channel, as I can see on my cursor here. And then the second watercourse is the Castlewood watercourse. This is culverted again under Farm Road to the north of the site. And then this will run overground as existing for a short distance, and then it will join the new drainage channel. These two channels will then converge and meet in the northeast, and then flow individually down, or separately, sorry, combined into one channel, which will then collect in a new attenuation pond in the south, as we can see in this here. For the channels to be constructed, there will be some excavation works required, and then the material from that excavation is then to be redistributed across the site in 3 main tip-off areas. So we've got tip-off area 1 here, area 2 and area 3 shaded in grey and green. For the construction and engineering and then maintenance of the channels and the pond, there is a new access track to be constructed. This will start from the southern access by the Big Arch. It will run northwards to the west of the pond here, up the Castlewood channel, and then down to the west where it meets Farm Road to the west there. If we look at some of the proposed site sections, these sections are arranged in order from north to south. These sections are taken east to west sections looking northwards. So as you can see up here, we've got the level of Farm Road, the levels of the first tip-off area here, the Llangafog channel, and then the Castlewood channel and the existing vegetation there. And then the second section then is taken more southerly through the site, and then the final section, the most southern taken section. As we can see, this one has details of the Castlewood pond area. Looking at the pond more specifically, we've got some long sections both north to south and east to west, just detailing the ground levels and the levels of the water that we can expect in this new pond. I've separated the landscaping management plan into two drawings, 2 clips. We've got north here and then south secondly. So again, we can see details of the new channels, the Llangafog channel and then the Castlewood channel, the 3 tip-off areas in the north and in the west, and then the access track which will run this way. We've also got some of the existing pedestrian accesses and vehicle accesses to the site, detailed in by the blue arrows. And then the dark and pale green shaded areas are areas of existing vegetation to be retained and remain as they are. And then taking up the southern section, we can see again the pond and the existing vegetation there as well, and the maintenance track that will run around the perimeter of the pond, and also the small overflow space just to the north of the pond there as well. Looking at the ecology of the site, the applicants conducted a raft of ecological assessments. This plan here demonstrates the areas for manual replanting, which is informed by the Green Infrastructure Statement and all the habitats surveys that have been conducted. So most of the manual replanting is on the tip-off areas and at the bottom of their slopes, and also within and around the directions of the channels. So the channels are to be grassed and seeded, and then manual planting around them also. Also on this plan we can see 4 little brown stars. These are reptile hibernation areas, and then to the south we've got a singular red star, and that is a newly proposed barn owl box just outside the application site. Looking at some site photographs, we've got this first one, view looking northwards with the big arch behind me, and then another one down here looking northwest over one of the existing coal tips. This top image again is where the existing Blangaffog stream enters a drop shaft where it's culverted, and then another image looking southeast in the bottom there. This new top image looking northwards this time along Farm Road and up into the north. We can see Farm Road and one of the existing pedestrian accesses there, and then this bottom image here shows where the Castlewood stream exits its culvert under Farm Road and starts overground. This next image is the vehicle access for the site to the north, the byway to the north of the site, and then another image of the site looking southwards on the bottom there. And then these final images here, we've got one of the existing pedestrian accesses just adjacent to the old station house in the east, and adjacent to the disused railway line. And then finally, the start of the new access track looking southwards just north of the big arch. So looking at vehicle accesses, the applicants provided some indicative swept paths analysis for the 3 main accesses for the site clearance phase of this development as existing at the moment. So we've got Farm Road vehicle accesses on the top there, and then British Road farm accesses on that side there. And then finally, we've got the vehicle access from Lodge Road, or the B4246. You can see the big arch there, and then we've got some swept paths analyses there as well. Finally, I've just taken this image from the supplied design and access statement, which looks at what the site will look like visually once the development is completed, and the manual planting and then the natural regeneration has had chance to establish. That concludes my presentation. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Right, Niall, do the 2 committee members in the chamber want to ask a question?
Not at this time, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, well, we start with Councillor Stephen Evans then. Steve?
Thank you, Chair. What I'm going to ask is, if the pond floods itself, right, I know you say there's an overflow in it, but how often are you going to check for blockages throughout that water system? And the second part of that, what safety things you're putting in to stop anybody coming and being in the water? That's the second part. So thank you for that.
Right, thank you. Tom, can you answer that, please?
Yes, I'll try my best. In terms of what, looking at how material has stopped being blockages, we've got some rafts over the top and cages which will go over all the culverted sections of the site. And then the second part of the question, I don't believe there are any measures at the moment to prevent anybody from entering the water. I think at this point, the application is visually acceptable, and I would worry that would any kind of harsh fencing or preventative measures would spoil sort of the positive landscape that we've tried to secure for this.
Thank you.
Can I come back in, Chair?
Yes, yes.
I am seriously worried that a young child or an animal could end up in that water with nothing there to protect them going in. You know, some young children don't see any dangers, and that deeply alarms me, you know, particularly the history of somebody, you know, a young child on that site. So I think it's something we may need to look at. I'm deeply disturbed with that, so thank you.
Chair, do you want me to come in there?
Yes, please.
Yeah, obviously it's a council scheme, it's council development scheme, so all the health and safety aspects of it will be fully considered by the council themselves on it. The purpose of the attenuation pond is to gather water to a level which is acceptable, and then it's obviously when it gets to that level, it's attenuated slowly out of that system and into the water courses elsewhere. Its purpose is to obviously reduce flooding on the site, but also has a benefit for slowing water down, so it has benefits in terms of downstream flooding as well, reduction in that. So I think the health and safety aspects of it would be fully covered by the council because it's in council ownerships. But the slopes of the sides of the attenuation pond and the depth of it is at a depth that would be probably acceptable from the point of view. But I take, with any water course, there's an element of risk, isn't there, wherever you are. So I think those things will be covered quite closely by the council when developing it, but it's also designed in a way that it's taken those risks on board when it's designing the slopes of the side and the depth of the water within it.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Right, thank you. I've got another question now from Councillor Stuart Ashley.
All I was going to say was that a lot of us have actually been up there because obviously when they sought to persuade members it was a good scheme because the council spent an awful lot of money on this thing. The attenuation ponds, I can never say that word properly, was a central bit of it because they were above it, I believe, there's deep ravines and where this water comes out and comes down, and the idea is, as you said, was to let the water down. I am minded of the fact that it's a source of water eventually for the Avon Lwyd and various other things further down the valley. The problem we got, as Steve's alluded to it, about whether that water's deep or not, further up it is, because I remember looking over and thinking how deep it was. Above these attenuation ponds, but people have normally, bearing in mind it's a site that's got shafts and other things on it, hopefully would have the good sense not to go and get in the water because it's cold mine water. It's not exactly the stuff you want to go into. So I'm hoping that what you've got in measures of controlling people going into mine water would be it's not desirable for you to go in there in the first place. So what softer measures we would have in place, along with Steve's barriers, I would hope that there was a whole lot of things in place there. The other thing is that having been on that site, it's absolute delight. I remember going on one of the visits under Big Arch with the ecology group. You've got skylarks and you've got all sorts of stuff that's obvious in the day, and I've read the ecologists and I think they're very mindful of the fact that this needs doing, but how are we going to make sure that we don't lose what we got up there while the work's being done? I think it's a very important issue. Could you sort of allude to that, if you would, please?
Tom, please.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, as you say, it is a very attractive site currently, and there are, as part of the ecology assessments, there are areas to be retained during the construction of the development. Although we do appreciate that the excavation works and the creation of a new pond will see some loss of ecological features and will make the site appear a bit stark at first. I think what we've secured for this site is a long-term plan for natural regeneration, and it's something that the ecologist, as you see in the report, has made comment on about the opportunities for I think we describe it as mosaic habitats of woodland and grasslands and marshland to re-establish naturally. The site's obviously been left unkempt for quite some time now, and has allowed the site to regenerate over a lot of the land there. So what we're looking at is partially natural planting and then some natural regeneration to be allowed to take place and facilitated by the creation of the new ponds. And this will create, new habitats for wildlife to flourish as well. In terms of bats, I would make a point that the ecologist thinks that there'd be, a net benefit for foraging areas for bats as well, just by nature of the watercourses and all the wildlife that's associated with that. And we have got a condition for a landscaping management schedule as well to be secured as well, so that we make sure that that landscaping is implemented properly and maintained, so it can run alongside the natural regeneration for the site as well.
Right, is that okay?
That. Thank you very much. No, well, I mean, I'm technically in favour of this because it needs doing, to be quite honest.
Right, thank you for that. Right, a hand was up and now it's gone. Is there anyone else in the chamber wishing to speak?
That was Councillor Gaynor James, Chair.
All right.
Yes,
Gaynor, do you want to come in with...
This application is needed and it will make a massive difference. So I'm all for it, and it also, a pond is a pond, and how many open ponds have we got in Torfaen or all over the UK? And that you can't be fencing every pond off. So a pond is a pond, and they all got their own risks, and they always will. So, but I'm for this application.
Right, thank you. There's another hand up. Councillor Stephen Evans, question?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the pond is a pond, but so is safety in the pond. Can I ask, on some of the consultation responses, there is something from with contaminated land. How are we going to deal with that, particularly with going through the water sources?
Right, Tom, can you answer that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll answer that question, if I may.
Yes, please.
As part of the application, as you've rightly mentioned, Councillor Evans, there has been a contaminated land assessment, and that's looked at contamination of the land. What you'll also note, Chair, as part of the submission is that by bringing the water up from underground to overground, the contamination can be controlled. And as part of this application, as Tom has told you, is that when we go through the culverts, there are various culverts that are going into the pond. And as part of that, there's also natural filtration, because at the bottom of the pond, there is grass, and that will help with the filtration going forward. And that's one of the key reasons why this scheme is being done. So the contaminated land has been looked at by colleagues in environmental health, and they're confident that in terms of leaching, which is the point that you're making, this can be controlled through primarily the sediments going into the pond, and obviously the new culvert will ensure that when it goes out of the site and into the Avenue and then further down into the Esk, it would be a better quality water than currently exists that flows from the site at the moment.
Right, thank you. Okay, Steve?
Yeah, thanks. The reason I raised it came on behalf of the coal board and the ecology. That's why I was concerned how they going to deal with that through the water sources. But no, thank you for that.
Right, thank you. I can't see any other hands up. Oh, Stuart Ashley.
I'm wondering whether I need to make a declaration, actually, because I'm on the Strategic Canal board, and one of the comments that was made down there was looking at this as a potential source of water for the canal, because I'm sure people know that we've got a problem with the canal at the moment. We're getting water for it, and putting this in will make this actually a source of water for the canal that's indigenous. It wasn't a prospect before, but if we actually put this in, this actually makes a source of water, along with a few other things in Torvai. So I make that declaration that
okay.
There is a hope that this is a positive thing. I don't know if Alan might have to do that as well, but I would make it as a positive.
Right, I'll ask our legal advisor, Polly. Is Councillor Ashley okay to say that?
I think Councillor Ashley has made his declaration, so that's a matter for him, and he's adequately explained it.
Yes. Thank you. Right, okay, Stuart, do you want to say anything else?
Well, no, I think I would like to propose this if nobody else is going to speak.
Okay, is there a seconder?
I will second that.
There's 2 seconders. Right, okay, then there's no more questions. So, Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against, or are abstaining this application?
Yes, of course, Chair. So, starting with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Approval conditions, yeah.
Councillor Gordon.
For.
Councillor Haller.
For.
Councillor Gaynor James.
For.
Councillor John James.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor Mark Jones.
For.
Yourself, Chair.
For.
And finally, Councillor Slade.
For.
That's unanimous,
Thank
Chair.
you very much. Yes, it's unanimous. So this application has been approved. Right. Thank you all for your attendance and contributions today. And I'll now close the meeting.